friend.
Hi, friend.
And to the brave hearts listening out there, welcome to Permission to be Human. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Janelle.
Get ready for some real-time relationship woo and wisdom
from the front lines with occasional tantrums and tears
about how breaking rules, blurring boundaries, and tossing tradition can be catalysts for finding your truth.
Let's debunk the fairy tales we were told as children and create a new map for life.
Yes, Disney can go fuck itself.
If you're seeking permission to choose your own path,
freedom is the new F word, people,
and want to feel less alone along the way,
we got you.
Please note, this is our side of the story. Our partners and metamors have their own individual experiences, and we do not speak for them.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Janelle. How are you doing today?
Already an eventful day with a unexpected workout. The workout was expected, but the paramedics having to show up for someone was unexpected.
At the gym. Sounds like a drama-filled morning.
Yeah.
Even if you're just witnessing.
Yeah. But so glad to be here. And how was choir last night?
It was beautiful. It is a circle of love with so much support. And Kathleen Hooper was back at choir after completing a tour with her little musical duo called Lady.
And Lady is spelled L-V-D-Y.
And the special thing about Lady is that our intro is music from them.
It's called Running Wild. And the other piece that I realized I didn't mention in one of the last episodes when I was talking about opening my throat chakra and that I took music lessons, it was Kathleen that I took music lessons from. So this is definitely a community podcast with spirit crowns by our friend Sophie, with our music by our friend and musical maestro and choir leader Kathleen, and just love supporting the people in our world who are creating beauty and art in all the ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. And today we are warriors.
Feminine warriors.
Feminine warriors. Yes. Got my feather spirit crown on. Janelle, what is that you're wearing? Where did you get that?
I actually got this. Common Threads.
I love it. I love Common Threads. Promotion for Common Threads.
Common Threads, for anyone listening who lives in Denver or Boulder, is our favorite thrift shop, consignment shop. There's two shops that I shop at, Umba in Boulder, Common Threads in Denver. And so I got this on consignment, paid for it. And
beautiful.
Love it. So it's bone. It's made by this artist who lives in Kenya. And it's, really cool.
Love it. Today, we're going to talk about emotional release tools.
Yay.
But first, before we do that, we're going to talk about one of my favorite musicians, Florence and the Machine. Credit to my boyfriend for turning me on to Florence and the Machine. Wow. Florence is a life force for me. I feel like she is my soul sister, even though she has never met me. She comes from both the light and the dark. And her music is haunting. Her voice is beautiful. She is wild. She is free. She also is actually very related to the spirit crowns we wear, because when my daughter and I went to her concert in Denver, everybody was wearing flowers on their head and long gowns. So it is a Florence and the Machine thing to have spirit crowns on.
Oh.
So next time we go, we're wearing spirit crowns for sure. So, okay, first, why don't you mention Florence and the Machine too? Because this is so special. This is so special, Bravehearts.
Yeah, Bravehearts. If you haven't figured out, it's amazing that Andrea and I are friends.
Sometimes just shocking.
Shocking, given her knowledge and my lack of knowledge of music, of pop culture, of any movie reference. So one tiny little miracle is that I actually know who Florence and the Machine is. Yay! And it was a reference that I got straight away. The other miracle is that I love her. And I don't remember when I was introduced to her, but it was actually much earlier than Andrea. And as we were prepping for this show, is the crazy thing is that I lived downtown Denver for 7 years, and on the Pepsi Center compound, when it was still called the Pepsi Center, it's now Ball Arena. And the Pepsi Center is the largest indoor music venue in, I think, Colorado. It's also where the Nuggets play. So it's this huge place. I was literally the closest apartment
You were. You for sure were.
The Pepsi Center. So it was maybe a 45-second walk from my door to the front door of the Pepsi Center. So as you can imagine, every artist has played there. And for all my 7 years there, I went to all of 2 events. One of them was Michelle Obama. And then the other one was Florence and the Machine.
We have overlap. We have musical overlap.
Yeah, I mean, really, truly, I could count the number of musical concerts I've been to in my lifetime on 2 hands. And Florence and the Machine was one. So I love that we have this in common and that she is a spirit-crowned connoisseur. And I agree, she is a force of nature. And for me, too, embodies beautifully the releasing of emotion.
Exactly.
And why are we talking about her, actually?
So Florence and the Machine has a song called Choreomania. And I have to give credit to my friend Jessica's daughter, who is a writer. Jessica is also a writer. She's an award-winning translator. And one day, her daughter looked up what choreomania meant and then told my daughter. And then my daughter told me. And I was like, what? What does it mean? You're joking. This is what choreomania means. In Greek, it translates to dancing mania, from the Greek word choros, which means to dance, and mania, which means madness. So the definition of this is an uncontrollable urge to dance, especially in a frenzied, convulsive manner. The first outbreak of choreomania began in July 1518, when a woman by the name of Frau Trophia began to dance fervently in a street in Strasbourg. Trophia kept up this constant dancing for a week straight. Soon, 36 others joined in this dancing chaos. And in August of the same year, this dancing plague had claimed 400 victims. No one knows what caused the townspeople to dance against their will or why the dancing persisted for so long, right? This is so crazy. But in the end, as many as 100 people died because they danced until they dropped. So historians have dubbed this bizarre and deadly event the dancing plague of 1518.
The dancing plague of 1518.
I'm so happy.
Wow.
I don't mean to be happy that people died, but I'm like, people love dancing even in the 1500s.
So why does dancing until you literally die resonate with you?
Well, I don't want to die, but I love to dance so much. When I hear music, my stamina becomes more impressive. I can run faster. I can go longer. I often have emotional energy that needs a release. I feel like a life force take hold. There's a wildness that I resonate with. And I do like to perform. You know how all those magnets that you find at little boutiques and they are like tourist traps and they all say, dance like no one's watching. And I'm like, what do you mean? I want to dance like everyone's watching. I don't dance alone in my apartment. I find that incredibly boring. I guess I'm just the weird one, but.
Or the performer.
Or the performer, I guess so. So does choreomania resonate with you? What do you think about this dancing plague?
It does resonate with me. I've had the experience of spirit moving me to dance versus me dancing myself. It was during an ayahuasca ceremony. Those who don't know, ayahuasca is a South American psychedelic. It is often consumed in a very ceremonial, ritualized way. And the ceremony involves a lot of sacred medicine songs. So you're taking the medicine, people are singing these songs. And what my experience was whether I was laying down, sitting, or standing, my body was constantly in dancing motion. But I don't say, oh, I danced my entire ayahuasca ceremony. It was more that the divine was dancing me.
Whoa.
My body was a puppet, and I surrendered to the movement that came through. And in this way, I danced for many, many hours. And once the ceremony started to wind down, the music stopped, then my body would start to slow down. So I have a taste of what it would be like to surrender to my body's dancing, but I definitely cannot imagine doing it for a week. I'm usually pretty tuckered out after 5 hours.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. It's one of my favorite stories. I have this picture in my mind of you doing it, even though I didn't see you doing it. I always think of you when I picture this ayahuasca ceremony and you just dancing your heart out. So we love this dancing for itself, but it really is about the need for emotional energy, at least for me. And for many years, I considered it a gift that I was emotional. I showed people how I felt. I found it exhilarating to share my joy as well. And I felt like this was me being authentic. But my emotions could also be a big problem. Sometimes they were just so big and overwhelming. I didn't know what to do with them. And in relationship, my emotional reliefs could turn toxic because I would get big. I just so wanted to explain my point. I was very adamant about making sure that my partner knew how I felt.
I just want to clarify something because I hear you say your emotions were a big problem. But was it really that the emotions were a big problem or how you were expressing your emotions to someone else? Like in this way of like turning it toxic onto someone versus just allowing yourself to feel them?
Yes, I think I was expressing my emotions at someone instead of expressing them into the air or on my own. And so in a sense, my emotions became a blame point to someone else. Like, you're making me cry. It's your fault that I'm crying. And I think maybe that was the difference. In either case, I began to wonder, why did I have to get so big? Why did I have to emote so much? Why did I have to yell or scream? So this is just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg here with the emotions. So Janelle, what's been your basic kind of summarized emotional experience across your life?
What I've learned is that my natural state growing up was to repress my emotions, at least the ones I perceived as negative. I'm a naturally optimistic and positive person. And so I used to think that I just didn't get angry or frustrated or disappointed. And after I started learning about emotional release and learning to listen to my body, I realized that what was happening was that I was experiencing anger or disappointment or frustration, but that when I got triggered with one of those, I would actually just get really quiet and tears would start to rise, and then I would suppress those because I didn't want someone to see that I was upset. And I'm sure subconsciously, right, that whatever emotion I was feeling was still getting expressed in some way, probably through defensiveness or maybe some passive aggressiveness, but it was suppressed enough in my unconscious enough that I used to just not even recognize that I was feeling angry. I was just like, oh, that's just not there. And yet, in hindsight, I can still feel in my body the tension that I would feel when I tried to suppress my tears or these emotions. Like the tension of trying not to show anyone else that I was upset. I definitely feel like it was tied to people pleasing.
Yes, this is fascinating. You mentioned people feeling uncomfortable or you feeling like you were making them uncomfortable by crying. I think this brings up an interesting question in society. So I ran into this recently with someone else where they were mentioning that they didn't think people should cry in public or cry in a group setting because it made them uncomfortable. And to me, I'm just like, no, I can cry whenever I want. I'm feeling teary and I'm going to cry. It doesn't mean I'm expecting you to hold me or hold space for me or even hug me. But if tears are coming, they're coming. Last night is a great example at choir. There's a bunch of people crying. I got teary myself and I wasn't even speaking. I was just listening. So I think that is a question in society. Like, is it okay to show your emotions? And where is it appropriate and where is it inappropriate? Is it not appropriate at work? Is it appropriate in a friend group? Is it appropriate with your family?
Wow, those are all really big questions. I almost like have to take a deep breath. Everyone?
Great idea.
Yeah. When is it appropriate to show our emotions? My initial instinct is that all emotions are welcome, right? This is like the new knowledge that I have. And I think it's probably a lot has to do with the person who's expressing them. Are they expressing them in a healthy way?
Mm-hmm. Great point.
And yeah, what are the actual like ramifications of them expressing their emotions?
As you were talking, what came up for me is just about boundaries. So they can express what they want. And as long as everyone else in the room feels that there's no expectation on them to tend to hug, to hold space, whatever, then it's fine. No, right? That
I disagree with, actually.
Oh, really?
That's an assumption that you know the state of everyone in the room.
Well, I know. I mean, I don't know the state of everyone in the room, but
So I don't know that can be whether it's appropriate or not.
But you can't walk around thinking like,
this is like real time, like contemplation by both of us right now.
So you feel like I shouldn't cry if I don't know the boundary status of all the people in the room? Is that what you're saying?
You should still cry. And you still might not know the boundary status of everyone in the room. And if you can be healthy in your own expression, then you're crying. And then you can just, if someone is reacting to you, then you can be like, I've got myself. Right? So I think it's using your voice can be contained even if tears are coming, but it's not the assumption that you know how they're going to respond to your tears.
No, we don't really know. It's just that we all have to take care of ourselves.
Right.
And so I'm saying if they feel awkward because they feel like they maybe should hug me, that's not my problem.
That's right. Exactly. So you should still be crying.
I agree, actually. Yeah. It's tricky.
It's hard. You and I are both entrepreneurs. We don't have a boss that we're in front of. So like, should you be crying in front of your boss? You would know whether that's going to be considered appropriate or not.
Yeah.
And yet I would love just like close my eyes and envision a world where everyone's emotions are welcome and expressed.
But are we? Yeah.
But
we're not there
where we are.
All right. Great. Good conversation. Good future episode. So we're both struggling with our emotions for different reasons. I'm directing my feelings at people. Janelle was suppressing hers, right? So there's been this immense benefit for us.
I was repressing mine. I actually want to call us. Repression is when I'm unconsciously shutting down my emotions. Suppressing is when I'm consciously doing it.
Which were you doing?
I think I was repressing them. Like I didn't even know I had anger, so I didn't know I was like, so there, I mean, I'm sure there's a dance between that, but I just think it's important to know the difference between those two words.
I love calling that out. Thank you. So I think we've determined over time that we acknowledge that our emotions are energy. We'll talk more about that later. We've accepted our emotions and are not shaming ourselves for them. And ideally, we're letting them flow and preventing them from getting stuck. Anything you add to that?
No, I think that's an accurate assessment of it. And I would say that those three things are incredibly life-changing. To have suddenly viewed emotions, which happen to us all day, every day, all the time, our entire lives, to have reflected on them and contemplated them and come to these conclusions, it impacts everything about my life.
It's huge. It's huge. So let's talk about crying again.
Why not? I love a good cry.
Okay. So you said sometimes we need to scream and cry. Tell me more about that.
What I figured out for me was that crying and tears are simply energy moving through me. I used to judge them. I think that they meant something was wrong that needed to be fixed. I had also internalized the experience that men in my life didn't like to see me cry. And so I tried to suppress them. In that very consciously was like, oh, he doesn't want to see me cry. It's making him upset because I'm upset. And what that did for me was like, then I ended up with this stuck emotion. Once I realized that these tears were just a release, right? Just like laughter is a release, sweating is a release, like my tears were a release. And I realized that my tears were really actually quite good and useful. And I actually was able to ask my partner not to collapse in the face of my tears and rather just hold space. Because what I realized is like once the tears stopped, I just felt so much better. Like nothing had changed. No one had said anything. The circumstance was still it. I had just cried and I felt better. During the past year with the divorce and different things were stressful on lots of different levels. And I figured out that when I was stressed or sad, that when I'm going to my workout, I work out Teddy B's 3 times a week. And when I get to the point in the workout where my muscles are tired or something is efforting, that I just would bust out into tears.
Was that the first time that happened for you while you're working out?
Yes. I think it was the first time. Yeah. I just think I was so much more in touch with my emotions that I realized that for a period of time, I was like, I'm going to work out so that I can actually cry. And I can release this emotion and this sadness that was like welling in me. And everyone there was like lovely about it. But it was me just also offering myself such grace and recognizing that releasing the energy was just so good for me.
Wow. I don't even think I knew that you did this. I don't know if we've discussed this.
How do you feel about crying?
Yeah. So, I mean, growing up, I would say through my 30s, I cried when I was sad. Relationship breakups and Hallmark commercials and Little House on the Prairie. Those are the things that made me cry.
Like sentimental stuff.
Totally sentimental. That was it. The Notebook. Oh my God. I read The Notebook on the plane and I was bawling on the plane. I just could not stop crying. People were just like, dude, what is going on with you? It was such a little bit too much of a spectacle. Anyway.
No, and no surprise, I've not seen or read the book, but I do know that it's a love story.
Pretty cheesy. Like now I would be like, this is mainstream crap. But then I first saw a therapist 10 years ago and we were doing some body work and something she said really resonated and I started crying and I was like, I didn't know what to think. I'd cried when I was happy too, I suppose at some point, but I now call these truth tears. When I know I hear something true that I haven't realized until now, maybe something that's been buried or that I wasn't accepting, that's when the tears come. And then at a certain point in my life, probably in my early 40s, right after I met my boyfriend, I just had all this energy rise up. I think he helped bring it out in me. And that's when I started crying during orgasm and crying at the zenith of my run. I would run and just break into sobs at the end. And in the beginning, when those things happened to me, I was really confused. Right?
Yeah.
I remember texting a friend of mine being like, have you ever cried during orgasm before? Like, she's like, yeah. And it really surprised me, but it feels like such a good release. Mm-hmm. And I think it also has frightened. Yeah, it's definitely frightened a lover or two. but it is just an energy release.
I want to like interject something here. I remember a friend in my 20s, we're all talking about sex and orgasms all the time. I was working at a lingerie store, so that was the topic. And she would talk about how she, cried during orgasm. And I never have. I now have a couple of times, but I remember feeling so badly about myself that like, oh, I'm not, like something is wrong with me because I'm not crying during an orgasm.
Right? That's what we do in our 20s.
Yes. Yeah. So I also just want to acknowledge the brave hearts living out there that for me, I'm saying this for me, reminding that like, oh, I'm really in touch with my emotions and my tears, and not crying during orgasm doesn't mean that I'm like not fully expressed.
Or that the orgasm isn't good.
Right.
There's different kinds of orgasms.
Yeah.
But I do feel like the sobbing I eventually started going through helped me know myself better. Or
speak more to that.
Yeah, it's like this deeper knowing. Crying when I come feels like there's a deeper knowing of myself, that I'm getting closer to myself, and I have an understanding of who I am.
That's so beautiful.
Strange. It surprises me, but I'm surprised how it's not really at that point of the orgasm. It's not about the partner. It's just about me. And we've talked before, I know, about ourselves being the biggest source of our pleasure.
Yeah. Wow, that's really beautiful. Andrea, you have another thing that you do too, right? It's a pushing thing.
Oh, yeah. The emotional release I crave. I don't know if it's even emotional relief. It's something I crave. That's all I know. Is that I practice this with partners, but I've also done it with you. I remember doing it with you on my porch once. Mm-hmm. I crave the release of energy and the resistance back. So pushing something over doesn't work. It's almost like I need a rock to break myself against. But it's also part of the reason I crave masculine energy, because I want someone to be stronger than me so that they can hold, and you are bigger and stronger than me, probably. You know, it can be during the squeeze of a hug, or it can be pushing into someone's hands. But the surface does need to be alive and active. Like, it doesn't work for me to punch a punching bag. It does. It feels good, but it doesn't feel as good. I want that pushback.
Or push against a wall.
Yes, that's good. I prefer kind of having that resistance from someone else pushing at me. There's something about the resistance that I crave, and I just love it. Like, I feel like I become stronger in the moment I'm pushing.
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm like, keep going. I'm like, oh, I guess I should stop. Nope. Keep going. Janelle, you've also mentioned wanting to disappear, to hide. What's that about?
Yeah. There are times when I'm triggered that I want to disappear. Sometimes I'll take a shower in the dark. Credit to my friend Lindsay for introducing me to dark showers, or hide under a desk, or go into a dark closet. In these moments, I can't see myself, and it feels like I'm, like disappearing or like resting in the nothingness. And it's not about suicide or death. It's about, a temporary escape from the sensations of my body. In the last year or so, my awareness of my body has improved. So I can note that the sensation in my body is actually not as bad as my mind thinks that it is.
Okay, tell me more.
Like I can be like triggered and I'm like, oh, like everything feels so terrible. And then like I'll close my eyes, take a deep breath, and I'm like, okay, where in my body feels terrible? And I'm like, oh, my chest has a little bit of constriction. Right? Like there's no pain that's coming up. There's a connection between like my mind and this constriction in my chest that makes me think, like literally think, oh my gosh, like the world is ending feeling. But when I can pause, take a breath, and really scan my body, I'm like, oh, like the sensations in my body are in a very concrete way, not that bad.
So what I'm hearing is that your mind is taking it to another level without your body's permission. And then by hiding.
Like there's a sensation, like I will feel something in my body that I'm like, oh my God, I want to stop feeling this. Like I just want it to like disappear. But when I pause and be like, what is it that I want to disappear? It's like, like it's a constriction in my chest. Like if I shake it out or scream or move, like then it can go away. It's not physical pain. I don't think I'm explaining this well, but there's this.
Okay, let me try something out on you. So I don't know the origin of this. I remember during meditation classes, say 6-7 years ago, that something my husband would help me or tell me when I was having pain or suffering was that really trying to find the source of the pain. And when you do that, you can't find it.
Yeah.
And that sounds like what you're doing.
Yes.
Like, wait, where is it? I know it's there. And then it's not there.
Right. It feels like, oh my gosh, like I want to die feeling, like I want to disappear feeling. And then when I'm like, okay, well, what is it that I'm really trying to escape or disappear from? I'm like, oh, I have this like constriction in my chest. Like it's small. Like, or it's when you get a cut on your hand, like a paper cut even, right? And it's so painful and you're just like, oh my gosh, like it's constantly present. When I bring my intention to the feeling that I have when I'm like, oh my gosh, I want this feeling to go away. I'm like, oh, I can just like breathe into that feeling and it goes away.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Right. And so that awareness has really allowed me a lot of relief.
That's beautiful. That's a great discovery.
Yeah.
And something that is a self-care method, basically, a way to bring yourself down. I suppose this conversation would not be complete without talking about fight, flight, or freeze. Shock, I'm a fighter. I tend to fight back immediately. And you?
Yeah, freeze, for sure. And laugh inappropriately when I'm nervous or relieved about something I thought I was in trouble for.
Okay, I think that's pretty normal too. So, ERT, Janelle, take it away.
So,
take it away.
Brave hearts, in case another little like quirk about Andrea is that acronyms are her favorite thing.
It's true.
So I've never heard of ERT until talking to Andrea. I call them emotional release tools. It's a lot of syllables there, I know, but not too many to say.
Okay. How did emotional release tools come into your life?
Okay, so I learned about them from ISTA, which we've mentioned before. ISTA is a transformational tantra retreat, which is about allowing for integration of all aspects of our mind, body, spirit, sexuality.
Quote unquote. Yeah.
Quote unquote. And it was there that I learned that I've been repressing emotions for most of my life and that having them come to the surface is super useful. Grief, so we've mentioned anger and frustration and crying, but like grief was a big one for me. My mom passed away 15 years ago, and that kind of grief for me felt okay. I was like, oh, I'm going to be sad for a really long period of time. I don't know how long. And I was quite comfortable giving myself the space to grieve that. But when my relationship didn't look or feel the way I thought it should, the relationship with my partner, I didn't know what to do. And I've said this before, I grieved the loss of the imagined reality. And allowing me to move that grief felt huge, even though the loss was an imagined reality.
Yeah.
The grief was real.
Yeah, I can relate.
Huge sobs, huge tears, like lasting hours and days. At my Burning Man camp last year, Dark Heart, we taught these emotional release tools as part of a workshop called Sacred Relating Fundamentals. And we taught them to everyone who was at our camp and offered to everyone on the playa. I just can't stress enough how valuable these tools are. They've been life-changing for me. So what are these, right?
Yeah.
These are 7 tools that ISTA teaches, and there's 2, potentially 9 if you count their add-ons. And the idea of them is, quote unquote, I'm going to the optimum level of being for the purpose of expressing and releasing my emotional body. I intend to be present and witness as I let go of what no longer serves me. I agree to not harm myself, anyone, or anything. The space that I vibrate open will be filled with resolution, freedom, and love.
Let's just breathe into that.
Nice. That's the intention that ISTA taught me to set prior to going into any of these tools.
Okay.
So what we're going to do right now for the brave hearts to know what's coming up is I'm going to describe the 7 different tools that they taught us. Obviously, listening to my voice is not going to be as useful as like watching someone do these. So in the show note link on whatever platform you're watching, you can go to a YouTube video by Naiya of The Grounded Feminine, where she has a video explaining and visually showing all of these tools.
Yeah. Okay. What's the first one?
First one is the hand scream. And for brave hearts listening right now, you can still try this. I'm going to do my best to describe it to you. You're going to put your hands one on top of the other, place your hands over your mouth to block sound, and scream into your hands. You have 2 options. If you're in public right now, then you can do the hand scream with sound, or you can do the hand scream as a silent hand scream, so no sound. The key to any of these emotional release tools, if you are screaming, is you want to use the back of your throat. You want to protect your voice as you're screaming. So the other part of this is whether you're sitting down or you're standing, you want to be moving your torso and your belly, because that's where a lot of the energy is stuck. And so the goal here is to release the energy, the stuck energy that's in your belly.
Gotcha.
Should we try this?
Sure. And I think you said when you want to yell at someone, this is the right tool.
Yes. Okay. So I just described the tool. When to use this tool is when you want to yell at someone, or, you could even be like you're on the phone with customer service and you're like pulling your hair out. And instead of yelling at them on the phone, because that's not really useful, then you could just like, let me put you on hold. And then just like do this hand scream. Right. So it's this idea that like something is building and this energy is building in you, and you just want to pull your hair out and scream, and you're just going to let yourself scream. Right. This is just like the safe way to let that energy move. So Andrea and I are going to do it right now. You're going to hear us.
Let's try it. Okay.
Yeah. We'll see how this goes. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Oh my God. Our pitches are so different, right?
Okay, so I have found that this one is one of the ones I use the most, especially the silent one, because when you're in public, you can do it in a bathroom stall, you can do it in your car, whatever. It's just like really easy. And it's fast and quick. You do it a couple of different times and then you move on with your day. Anything you want to say about it?
Nope.
Okay. Second one, pillow scream. Same concept, but this is when you're at home, you've got a pillow, you put it over your mouth to block the sound, and you scream into your pillow as you move your belly and torso to keep the energy flowing.
Yeah. And this is way more comfortable for me. Like, I need a pillow. I don't really love the hand scream for some reason. I just need another object. I went downstairs just last week and screamed into a pillow, and I tend to use it when I've had a fight with someone, a difficult conversation. I have so much energy, so much anger maybe sadness, maybe frustration, but often it's not really the other person's fault, right? Like literally I escaped.
In fact, probably never.
I don't know if that's true, actually.
Okay.
I mean, it could be their fault. I'm not saying their fault, but it could rightfully be at them, but I've already done it. My problem is that it's reasonable to express 2 minutes of frustration to someone you're talking to while I have 20 minutes of it that I want to say.
Wow, that's like a lot of wisdom right there, right? Like, what's the appropriate amount to express to someone? Even if you have more to express, it's not useful after a certain point.
I just start repeating myself.
Wow.
So that was part of that situation. Another part of that situation was that I was so frustrated and totally was not his fault. So I'll tell you a little story that we had this difficult discussion. I didn't freak out. I was frustrated. I left. I went downstairs and I screamed into the pillow several times. And then he followed me and he found me, which never happens, but it's really nice to be found. Even though I was hiding, it felt good that he was looking for me. And then we had a difficult discussion and I did some some screaming and some like anger. And I said, I tried to get away from you. And he's like, I know, I followed you. It's okay. So we worked it out. And I also knew that it was coming and I knew that I didn't want to let it out on him because it wasn't fair.
Right.
So
I'm just so proud of you. So proud of you.
Thank
right?
you.
Because I
Thank you,
just
friend.
know that you used to, for the 20 minutes you would express directly to the person. And so now that you're like, okay, here's 2 minutes and it's not your fault. And I know that. And that's still really annoying that it's not your fault. And I have to go downstairs and I'm just going to take care of myself. It's such immense growth.
it's big for me.
Yeah.
So, and I've also found that for anyone who lives in a small house with kids and dogs, and it's hard to find a place to be alone. I also live in a very urban neighborhood. Wherever I go, any direction I go, someone I know is going to see me. I used to love this, and now it's starting to be a challenge for me because there is nowhere I can go without driving that I will not.
Don't you sometimes go into your garage, into your car?
So that's what I'm about to say.
Oh.
That's the only thing I can do is I can go into my garage, I can shut the garage door and the door, and I can sit in my car and no one can hear me.
Okay.
So that's one place.
Okay. Well, but still, it's a place.
Yep.
So good to like call that out for people who do live in small or urban environments.
Yeah. And I will say I did see a meme maybe 2 years ago that said, did you know you can scream at any time? There's no law that says you can't scream at any time. It's true.
Yeah, in public, you can scream. You can't get in trouble for screaming.
Right. No one is going to arrest you for screaming. It's a joke. And of course, you don't want to draw attention to yourself too much, but you can. And
yeah,
sometimes you do need to let that go. That's why the pillow screaming is so handy.
Okay.
Next emotional release tool.
Next one is the wailing grief ritual. This one for me has been really potent. You do this either standing, you can do it on your knees or laying on your back. If you're standing, the idea is to allow your head to fall backwards and then open your shoulders, chest, and heart, arms by your side, extend it out, and your mouth is open as you wail. Yeah. And that's a great demonstration. And if you're on your back, you would put a pillow underneath the center of your back so that there's this arch to it. Because really the idea is that my intuition and your intuition typically when you're crying or sad or grieving is to like close in on yourself.
Curl in to fetal position, for sure.
Yeah.
It is.
And so the real release is coming from keeping your chest open.
Yeah, love it.
And so as I was saying, this one in particular for me, I had a couple of different times that I can think of in the past year when the kind of like sobbing, snot-filled, heaving, tears, crying is coming. I'll go into that position until I can't hold it anymore in the sense of like, I'll just lose my breath from crying so much. I'll come back out. I'll go back in. I'll like stop crying for like 10 minutes. I'll like do something in the house and then the next wave will come. I'll go back into that position. So I can think of 2 full days where I just spent my entire day allowing myself to like sob, grieve in this position, in and out all day. And I think what was profound about it was I was able to move this energy instead of getting stuck. When I think about the amount of energy that I released, that had I said, okay, it's not okay to cry or feel or grieve that, it feels like it would have, like it's like a mountain that would have been stuck inside of me. And I also want to name that sometimes in my case, like this was like real time, the grief is present. And so the tears were there, the sobs were there. For all of these emotional release tools, you can actually do them in a way proactively, especially if you've never done them before. Because once you put yourself in the position, and in the case of the grief wailing one, just open your mouth and start to wail without, like, you don't have to know what you're wailing about. Oftentimes, then the energy starts to move. So these release tools can be used, one, because you're feeling something in the exact moment. And so then you're like, I want to release it now. Or you're doing it to like be like, I want to release whatever is stuck that I don't even feel right now. And so you just can cycle through all of these tools and see and just allow yourself to be surprised at what comes up.
Okay.
So when I first learned these, this is what I did for a while. Like I would wake up, one of the instructors, Brianna, had suggested that she does this every morning. She just take 20 minutes and cycle through all the release tools, just waiting to see what would come up. And then, eventually she kind of got to like the bottom of that. Okay, so there's one more that I'm going to talk about. There's actually more than this, but you can watch the video. Andrea and I are talking about the ones that we have used the most.
So I want to say quick, because I'm picturing doing this in the morning in my bed. A friend of mine in Santa Fe talked about how she was doing emotional release tools every morning, became part of her routine. And I just pictured myself doing this in my bed in my tiny house with its somewhat thin walls, having my daughter hear me do this. And just, my whole body just goes into like, oh my God, I don't want to have her hear me doing this. And if you're thinking that right now, I would encourage you to, or invite you to wonder what it would be like to explain some part of that to a child. Of course, age appropriateness comes into.
Someone else would know the developmental age better, but like probably you can say up until the age of 7, they're just doing this naturally.
Yeah.
There isn't a mind involved, like their emotions are just coming out. But to a 13-year-old, right, who's being conditioned, it's not okay to show emotions from culture, for whatever.
Not
right?
from me. But.
Yeah, not from you.
but yes, of course, I don't always want her to know necessarily, or any children, any moms out there or parents, you might not want your children to know that you're sad. And this is a personal decision depending on what's going on in your life. But if they hear some of that, explaining to a 16-year-old, this is the way I get my emotion out. I was upset about this. I didn't want to take it out on someone in my family or express it unhealthily. And so this is an emotional release tool.
Right. And they have emotions too. I mean, this is a tool that you can teach them.
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
yes,
showing
them that it's okay to do it. Whatever the expression is of the emotion is, that yes, they're feeling them too. So this is a way you could do it together. Share your newfound knowledge with them.
Absolutely.
And I also just want to name, even though we're talking about grief and anger and frustration, like this, I have actually used, there's another one called power stomping, where you're just really moving your body. And I have done that because I have so much joy that I feel like I'm floating away. And so it's like, I need to it's kind of like a balloon. I need to release some of the air, some of the joy in my system in order to ground back down. So it's not just anger and sadness that I have used these tools for. In my experience, sometimes the joy is, I'm losing presence because of that feeling.
Beautiful.
Okay, so the last one we want to talk about is the tantrum. And this one, I find just doing it on my bed is my way to do it. So you're laying on your back. You can do it on your belly as well. I mostly do it on my back. You want to have pillows underneath your extremities. And you want to have your palms open, not in fists. And the idea being that you're laying flat, your knees are bent, feet are flat on the mattress, pillows under each hand, and you just start to have a tantrum. So like banging your hands against the pillows, stamping your feet against the mattress. I also move my head around and I'm just again, moving and expressing with my voice as well. And I find this one is what's my best way to describe it? I'll do this sometimes before I go to bed. I'm just in bed. I'll just feel something just rise. I'll be a tantrum, like let the emotion out, and then I'm fine. So I feels like I'm just releasing the energy of the day sometimes with the tantrum. It's not necessarily like, oh, I had this. Sometimes it is, I have the exact thing, but it can almost feel a little bit like a ritual of like a going to bed ritual.
Love it. It's it can be part of a routine.
Yeah.
It's a release at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, those are our emotional release tools.
And as I said, so we only went over a few of them. They're life-changing. Highly recommend them. What we went over today was the hand scream and the silent hand scream. We went over the pillow scream, went over the grief wailing ritual, and also the tantrum. To learn about the others, you can go to the YouTube link that is in our show notes for Naiya at the Grounded Feminine. And
Bravehearts.
yeah, what's our homework?
Yeah, pick an emotional release tool and try it out, even if it's just for 9 seconds. Give it a try. See how it feels. We'd love to hear your stories about it. Call us anytime. Email us. Let us know how the ERTs go for you.
And really the takeaway from this podcast is just to really acknowledge that your emotions are okay. All of them. No matter how big, no matter how deep, no matter how loud.
It's important to move them through.
Yeah, they are just energy, and that they're part of being human. And knowing how to release them in a healthy manner is going to impact your entire life. And,
Amen.
And the life of those around you.
Amen, sister. Totally true.
Okay.
Yay.
See you next time.
Do you need permission to be human? You got it.
Listen, subscribe, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more about us at permissiontobehuman.live.